Hello and welcome to HDS's MSc in Psychoanalytic Observation and Reflective Practice course. This is a course about psychotherapeutic work with children and young people, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about the course and let you know how you might apply. So the course is run as a master's course, but it's structured as a modular course. So you can take some modules, you don't have to take all of the modules all at once, and you can space your studies out over a period of years. The plan for the MSc course is that it's really intended for professional people already working with children, young people, and families or carers in a lot of different work settings, either public, voluntary, private sectors. We often have people from the National Health Service, but also from third sector organisations, from social work, sometimes from art therapy backgrounds. But everybody who comes on our course is interested in understanding human development from a slightly different point of view. Very often people have recognised that things happen in interactions with one another which stir up unusual or complicated feelings and want to have an understanding of what that might mean. And so looking at relationships and interactions from a psychoanalytic perspective opens up a whole other area of understanding that we often haven't realised was there, and allows us to apply that kind of learning into one's own professional work setting. So the plan is that people will come on this course, they will understand their own experience in interaction with others, and will be able to make sense of that in terms of what the other person might be telling us, not just by their words, but by the unconscious communications that come alongside words, and sort of body language and understanding what's stirred up in ourselves as a result. And so from that, students develop a rigorous, disciplined approach to what we call psychoanalytic observation. So that's observing what's going on for the person in front of you, what's going on for you as an individual, but also what's going on between the two of you from a psychoanalytic perspective, which is what I've just described in terms of recognizing what is stirred up in ourselves and making sense of what's going on from that viewpoint. And alongside this, the course will help develop an understanding of the basic and historical psychoanalytic concepts and theories which are relevant to professional practice. And we're going to look at those modules in a little bit more depth in a moment. The course is also intended to facilitate one's own professional development and to enhance the work practice in the student's field, because it opens up this other area of understanding that very often we have to try to put to one side in order to get on with the task in hand. But in fact, the experience of us all really is that when we pay attention to that side of things that we've sometimes not been able to address before, it opens up a clearer and a wider understanding. And the other thing to say about this course is that it's the preclinical course for the child and adolescent psychotherapy clinical training. So in order to apply to go on that training, you have to have completed a therapeutic work with children and young people course, preferably to master's level, but some people apply on the strength of a diploma on our course as a result of having done all the clinical modules with the exception of the master's module. But I'll explain that a little bit as we go on through the presentation. So the course is divided up into theory modules and observation modules. So the observation modules include infant observation, where you will be expected to find a family who have or about to have a newborn baby, and the student would visit as a non-participant observer, visit the baby in the context of their family on a weekly basis for an hour a week for 2 years, and learning to pay attention to the baby's emotional development and what the baby's experience is, and what's also stirred up in ourselves as observer. There's also a young child observation seminar, which is a weekly observation of a preschool child between the ages of 2 and 4, usually in a nursery setting, but occasionally in a family setting, and that runs for a year. We also have a work discussion module where the student is expected to bring presentations of their own work, so written presentations of their own work with children, with young people, parents, carers, families, and that module runs for a year. The theory modules that we offer are, first of all, a history of psychoanalytic thinking, and this helps us develop an understanding of relevant psychoanalytic concepts, starting with Freud through to contemporary psychoanalytic writers, and that module lasts for a year. This module takes us from the very start of psychoanalytic thinking, from Freud's time, set in the context of the historical period in which he was working, and moves on to other writers like Melanie Klein, Wilfred Bion, Donald Winnicott, and some more contemporary writers. We also run the other theory module is split into 2 sections: personality development and child development research. Personality development runs for 2 terms, and its focus is on the development of personality from birth onwards, again from a psychoanalytic perspective, and that too is an entirely reading seminar. And we have 1 term of child development research, which compares models of development from a range of different academic perspectives and how the application of the psychoanalytic framework links with the other modules. So it flows on from the personality development module very smoothly. Once you've done all of these modules, if your marks are of a sufficient rate, then usually over 70%, then you may be eligible to take on the master's dissertation. And we run the master's dissertation module when there are enough students to fill that. So we really need at least 3 students to make that module run. The dissertation provides the opportunity for students to undertake a discrete study, drawing on the knowledge, skills, and capacities that you've developed during the earlier parts of the course, and utilising the psychoanalytic observational method that you will have developed as part of the infant and young child observations, to examine a particular aspect of your ongoing work more from a research perspective. So it's like a small research project, but it's really an observational study. There's quite a complicated setup through an ethics procedure to run that dissertation, and there's a lot of learning both from the clinical side, but also from learning how to do a literature review, how to write up consent forms, and all sorts of other interesting and essential practicalities around that. So, are you eligible to join us? The entry requirements are, as it says on the screen, we need you to have some kind of professional qualification requiring a minimum of 1 year's training. When I say some kind of professional qualification, what I mean is that we don't have a very set list of qualifications, but it needs to be qualifications which are relevant to the kind of learning that you would be doing, and that those qualifications should be in something like psychiatry or psychology, social work, education, childcare, or perhaps even counselling or one of the other therapies other than psychoanalytic. We need people to have a minimum of a year's post-qualifying experience in work with infants or children or young people and their families. We would welcome applications from graduates who have undertaken a reasonable amount of relevant voluntary work during their undergraduate years. But also you would require a continuing professional contact with children and or young people throughout the course at a work setting which allows for and supports the work practice and observations necessary for the course requirements. In other words, we need you to be working within a structured environment with children or young people or families. And the other very important thing that we look for at interview is your innate capacity to reflect on yourself in relation to others and to your own work. And that's something that all of us have in us to varying degrees, and which will develop in the course of going through the modules. So you've completed the TWCYP and hopefully come to master's level. So what does it lead on to? Well, the clinical training to become a child and adolescent psychotherapist is a professional doctorate and clinical training. And I'm just going to outline a little bit about that now. So this training is a practical and theoretical training in psychoanalytic psychotherapy with children and young people. It leads on very smoothly from the preclinical training and builds on much of the theoretical reading that you've already done, and it absolutely uses the observational skills that have been developed through the process of infant observation and young child observation. The course takes in approximately 4 to 6 places once every 4 years, and our next intake is later on this year. And the programme provides a thorough training in the clinical practice of child and adolescent psychotherapy, and at the end of it, you would be a child and adolescent psychotherapist. Part of the components of the 4-year training are that you would be in a clinical placement, you would have an academic study, you would be required to go into training analysis on your own account. So that means that you would be required to see be required to be seen for your personal analysis by a psychoanalyst. There are only some psychoanalysts who are approved for training analyses, and you would be helped to find one of those. The expectation is that you have 4 or 5 sessions per week with an analyst, and that's a private time for you and your analyst. The content of what goes on in your analysis is not shared within the course. So part of this course involves research which is taken to doctoral level. So you come out with a doctorate at the end of it. So the entry requirements for that course are postgraduate diploma or MSc in the Psychoanalytic Observation and Reflective Practice, or an equivalent course. That's the TWCYP that I was talking about earlier. You need a considerable body of experience of working with children and young people. We don't set a specific amount of time, but there would be some discussion with you about the quality and quantity of that. And period of personal analysis is required prior to starting the course, so that would be beginning to meet with your analyst at least 6 months ahead of actually starting the clinical training. Personal and interpersonal capacities are looked for, so we look for people who are interested in the nature of relationships and who are willing to reflect on their own part in that. And that's often really quite a difficult thing to do, but it's something that develops as part of being on this course. Professional capacities obviously are essential in terms of your ability to write good essays, to be able to assimilate lots of pieces of information, and to be able to work to doctoral level. And that really leads me into talking about academic capacity as well, some of which will have obviously been tested on the preclinical course. So it's a pretty rigorous training, but it's an incredibly rewarding one too. And we very much hope that people will be interested and will come forward to apply for these trainings in the future. And we hope that you enjoy the open days at Human Development Scotland. Thank you very much.